With Hashem's loving grace, this is Laser Brody from the Holy Land of Israel with Emuna Beams, episode number 29. As we like to do in Emuna Beams frequently, is to get an Emuna perspective of what's happening in the world, and that's just what we're going to do today. Today's lesson is entitled King Solomon and Google Search. An unlikely name, but we'll see. King Solomon says that there's nothing new under the sun. En chadash tachat hashemes, he says in Ecclesiastes. What in the past is what will be in the future. This is what King Solomon says. So if someone says something is new, don't listen to him. Because the wisest man that ever walked the face of the earth, King Solomon, says it's already happened in former generations. But we ask ourselves, how can King Solomon, the wisest of all men that ever walked in the earth, make the above statement that there's nothing new under the sun? He didn't have Google search in his time. So how could he say that there's nothing new? Well, the answer is that King Solomon didn't need Google search. Google search, what is it? It's a mega source of information, but it can't decide which of two warring women is the real mother of a baby that each claims to be hers. Google search is a tremendous cyber pack mule with all this tons and tons and tons of information. But when it comes to wisdom and insight, Google search doesn't have it. It can't compete with King Solomon. So not only that, but the father of King Solomon, King David, he could understand the languages of all four levels of creation. The mineral, he could understand the language of a rock. He could hear the rock talking, a plant, an animal, and of course, human beings. He could understand the birds, what they were chattering and what they were saying when they were chattering. And he could understand the language of approaching rain clouds. He also could hear the lamentations of a soul trapped up in a tree or in an animal. This was the power of King David. And he didn't have high-powered telescopes, he didn't have satellite probes, he didn't have electron microscopes, but he knew the exact time required for the moon to circle the earth, even better than NASA does now. So in all fairness, when King Solomon says there's nothing new, he wasn't referring to technology, he was referring to human nature. So even if you have a Harvard MBA and dress him in a three-piece Botany 500 suit and give him an attaché case with his MacBook Air and his iPod 10 inside and put a wad of credit cards and lay him down right on Wall Street in Lower Manhattan, he still has the same drives and bodily urges that his counterpart 25 centuries ago had. There's no difference because both he and his predecessor, they chase money, they chase prestige, and they chased attractive members of the opposite sex. They both enveloped personal interest in all kinds of lofty sounding ideals that couldn't withstand the test of truth. And both justified cutthroat competition. And this is the finest tradition of Sparta. The whole kingdom of Sparta in Greece, it was based on cutthroat competition and to the death competition. And nobody ever had qualms about trampling a competitor in the arena in Rome or in Greece, whether it was by sword or whether it was by a court of law. So having retained everything he ever learned, King Solomon, he could truly say there's nothing new. He made a point to remember. His father, King David, taught him to remember and never forget. The Torah teaches us to remember and never forget either. We have 6 remembrances that we're supposed to remember every day. One is the Shabbat. The second is the Exodus from Egypt. The third is receiving Torah on Mount Sinai. The fourth is the sin of golden calf. The fifth is what Amalek did to us. Amalek, that was over 3,300 years ago. Yeah, it's Amalek. Hashem knew what he wrote in the Torah, that if we forgot our past, we have no future. That's why Hashem wanted to remember all these things. Remember 6 that we didn't mention yet, that's Miriam. Why did Hashem mention Miriam? Not to forget Miriam, because Miriam was punished for speaking Lashon Hara, and Hashem doesn't want to speak Lashon Hara. So if Miriam, the sister of Moses, was punished for slander, saying slander, well, we all better be careful, because Miriam, she was a prophetess, she was on a lofty spiritual level. But now let's take a glance at what's happening in the world today. People are upset, doesn't matter, on both sides of the ocean. In Israel, you can hear jet aircraft flying overhead all day long. And everybody seems to know that it's a dress rehearsal for the next war. because barely a day goes by without the Ayatollah Khomeini or some general in the Iran Revolutionary Guards threatening to wipe Israel off the map. So say hello to Haman's great-grandchildren, the Amaleks of 2020, and Happy New Year. Nothing new under the sun. And what about in America? People talk about Jew haters, and for a while it was not fashionable. The Jew haters, they kind of laid low, but now the Jew haters of posterity, they've reared their ugly heads in Pittsburgh and Poway, Los Angeles, California, and New Jersey City, and in Muncie, and Crown Heights, all over Brooklyn, where the biggest concentration of Jewish people are. Like a person isn't safe walking down the streets in Crown Heights, or in Flatbush, or in the subway. Come on. Nothing new is under the sun. King Solomon, he was reporting today's news. So just a few short years ago, there was a ruthless tyrant by the name of Saddam Hussein that also threatened to wipe us off the face of the earth. So you know what happened to Saddam Hussein? He ended up dying in a rat's hole. He hid like a rat in a hole. Also had a bad ending for bin Laden too. He's not there. What about all the tyrants before them? You know, if we open up our Haggadah on Pesach, it reminds us that each generation an enemy arises and attempts to destroy us. That's what remembering Amalek is all about. So all over the world, not only in the Islamic countries, but Europe, the UK, Germany, Belgium, all over North America, there's demagogues that claim that the Holocaust never happened, with all types of smooth-sounding ersatz proofs to support their claims. For anyone who remembers Amalek, in addition to those who survived Amalek's great-grandson Hitler, the Holocaust deniers are not only fools, but they're soldiers in this generation's evil army of Amalekites. Now, as believers, and as people with long memories, we Jews are not upset by another Nasrallah, or an Erdogan, or an Ismail Haniyeh. So many of us have come, so many of these tyrants, they've come and gone in the last 50 years. You take a teenager today, has he ever heard of Gamal Abdel Nasser, or Idi Amin, or Hafiz Assad, or Muammar Gaddafi? Today's school kids, they don't even know those names, because these guys have been wiped off the face of the earth. They threatened all of humanity. They threatened the Jews, to wipe out the Jews. And as we mentioned, Saddam Hussein and bin Laden, they bit the dust. And do you know something, beloved brothers and sisters? That is going to happen. The same fate to all the other tyrants and oppressors, because it's a template in history. Nothing new is under the sun. This is the fate that awaits all of them. There's nothing new under the sun. So what's the good news in that? The sun is a star, and a small star at that, even though it's 1,000,000 times bigger than our planet Earth. The Gemara Tractate Shabbat 156a says that the stars have no power over the Jewish people. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov explains that Gemara, and he says that even Emuna is above the stars. So you know what that means? That means that a person with Emuna is above the stars. That means that if you've got Emuna, you're above the sun, because the sun is a small star. So if you're looking for wisdom, I suggest try looking in King Solomon's Proverbs or in the book of Ecclesiastes. Google search won't make you smart. Now sure, King Solomon said that nothing is new under the sun. Things look bleak, they look pessimistic, especially with the tremendous upsurge of violent anti-Semitism in the USA. We every single day there's headlines. But above the sun with Emuna, there's a lot new, because on the way there's a final victory over Amalek, and there's the end of exile and diaspora, and the full redemption of our people with the coming of Mashiach, and big miracles that are awaiting us with our rebuilt holy temple of Jerusalem. Speedily days, Amen. God bless.